Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to Drinks and Discussions True Crime. I am your host, Tiffany, and this is my lovely co-host, Autumn. And today we are going to be talking to you about a horrific massacre that happened in California. But first, we're going to tell you what we are drinking. So I am drinking Malibu cocktail. It's got actual rum in it. This is pina colada flavor, but they had other flavors too, but pretty sweet, but I'm digging it. Autumn, what are you drinking?
So I am actually drinking Evan Vodka's espresso martini. Very delicious. I actually thought it was just, I guess, espresso. Oh shit, that makes so much more sense now. So I didn't realize that there was already vodka in this thing, so I also mixed it with Tito's.
It's a double. That's what it's
I
called.
realized, wow, this is really strong. And I was like, shit, there's already vodka in here. That makes sense because it would just be espresso.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's, they just say that's a double at the bar.
Yep.
So it's a double.
Delicious.
But today we're going to give you a little bit of a warning. There's going to be some content in here that is not suitable for younger viewers. So definitely, if you've got kids around, I would keep this one on the hush hush. So, Autumn, when you read about this, what were your thoughts? What were your thoughts on this?
This was by far probably, I don't know, we've done some pretty messed up ones so far. This one was pretty bad.
I hate when things involve children and animals, and this involved quite a few children. It was pretty hard to research, honestly. So let's just get right into it. First, we're going to talk about in 1964, we had two people, James Huberty and Edna. They got married and they had two children. They, at the time of this incident, they were 10 years old and 12 years old. And I think that's why it's kind of so hard for me to wrap my head around this, because us, like people who have kids, I don't understand how you could kill kids. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me at all how you could have two children at home and then go and do what he did. So let's talk about the incident. Typically, you go to McDonald's, you get you a little hamburger, a little fries, some nuggies, and you let your kids play at the play place. Not all McDonald's have play places anymore, but they used to. Yeah.
They were
Especially
back when McDonald's used to be actually shaped like the Happy Meal box. So
Yeah. So, I mean, that was like the playground for kids, especially in Texas. It's super hot. So that's a place you can go and be inside and playing. And that's what was going on, when all this happened on July 17th. But let's back up a little bit. 2 days. We're going to back up 2 days.
Right.
Yes. 17th is when you were put to the mental health clinic appointment. Sorry. We're going to July 18th. We're going to back up a few days. So we're going to go to July 15th. James and his wife, he felt like he might have some kind of mental problem. So he called a mental health clinic and was like, hey, I have some mental health issues that I'd like to get seen for or whatever. And they marked him as non-critical.
I mean, the dude sounded perfectly normal. He didn't sound like he was about to go into like it even said that he misspelled their last name on accident, but because of his polite demeanor, they,
he was kind of like, oh, that's okay, it's Huberty.
Nope, not crisis. Needs to be handled in 48 hours. Now, give you a little backstory on this. He actually used to be pretty affluent for the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Met his wife in college. He became very successful as a welder. He was doing all this stuff. What he was making back then was the equivalent of making six figures today. They had a really nice big house. They had a rental property that they owned and that they rented out. I mean, they were doing quite well for themselves. And then he loses his job. everything spirals out of control. They moved the T01. Like, he just kind of spiraled further and further.
Yeah, so his wife, I'm going to be honest, she had some sense, of course, that something was wrong. And even when he made the mental health appointment, she sat by the phone for several hours waiting for the clinic to return the call because she did think there was something seriously wrong with her husband. But they also behaved kind of normally. I mean, on the morning of July 18th, they went to the zoo. He took him and his wife took their kids to the zoo. They had a wonderful day, and then when they got home, he made a little comment about how the mental health clinic never returned his call, and he said something really cryptic. He said, "Well, society had their chance." At that moment, I don't know. I question his wife's behavior and kind of because he does say several things that are really weird. And they did go and eat lunch after the zoo. They went and ate lunch at a McDonald's restaurant. It's not the same McDonald's restaurant that this incident happened at, but they did. And they went home. They had dinner, and they watched a movie. Typical family day. You have a long outing. You have lunch at McDonald's. You go home. You watch a movie. It's a great day. Everybody's having a good time. Whatever. Then he goes in to his bedroom and he tells his wife, "I want to kiss you goodbye." And she's like, "Okay, dear, where are you going?" And he says, "I'm going hunting for humans."
Yeah.
So this is now the second weird ass thing that this man has said in the one day.
As he's walking out the door with all of his ammunition and pillowcases, checkered blanket.
He had all that shit wrapped up in it. But he had done that. Like, that's how he carried his stuff. So his family knew what it was. It wasn't a secret.
Yeah, like he would do that and he would go release his anger or whatever and go do
target practice or whatever.
But he glances at his oldest daughter, and as he walks out the door, he says, "Goodbye, I won't be back."
She's 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And he's basically insinuated that he is going to either harm himself and also possibly harm other people. And I know that there's other people who have mentioned this. When I was doing my research, I saw a lot of people saying his wife should have called the police. His wife should have probably called the police on him. I don't know what her thought process was, but her thought process on it is even more bizarre after the incident. But anyway, let's go ahead. So on that day, it's around 4 p.m. It's July the 18th, just the same morning that they went and visited the zoo. He drives his car to a parking lot to the McDonald's in San Isidro. And he had 3 weapons with him. He had a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. He had a 9mm Uzi carbine, and he had a 12-gauge shotgun. Now, just for your knowledge, at the time, there was no rapid response police in this area. So the police are running around with revolvers, 38 caliber revolvers. That's what they've got.
It's like before cell phone, social media,
Yeah, and they didn't really have anything that could have combated a guy who had a semi-automatic, a shotgun, and an Uzi. I mean, let's just be honest. So they really didn't have the manpower. But regardless, we're moving on. He also had hundreds of ammunition. For the fact, I think that he had released 256 rounds of ammunition. So he had a lot of ammunition, hundreds for each weapon. Because also when he's doing the actual crime, he's rotating between weapons. Okay, he's using 3 different guns. Anyway, so when he first enters the restaurant, there's a 16-year-old boy named John there. He's 15 feet away, and he's got a shotgun aimed at him. The assistant manager at McDonald's is like, "John, that guy's about to shoot you, right? So it's already like chaos, and pulls the trigger, and the gun doesn't go off. So immediately they're like, oh, this was a really stupid joke, right? It wasn't a stupid joke, because at that moment, Huberty, he fired his shotgun towards the ceiling, pulls out his Uzi, starts shooting people, shoots a lady in her face. She dies just a few minutes later. And then that's when his shotgun began, I guess he fixed whatever was wrong with it. I didn't read exactly what was wrong with it, but he fixed whatever was wrong with it. And he shoots the 16-year-old boy, Arnold. He shot him in his chest. And at that moment, he said, everybody on the ground. That's when shit just went crazy.
Yeah.
So
He really just literally started shooting everyone that was inside the restaurant. People were shooting loved ones, pregnant women were getting shot, babies were getting shot. And I mean, like, 9-month-old babies were getting shot. Like, it was insane.
Everybody was helpless.
Mm-hmm.
He did say something. He said, dirty swine, Vietnam assholes. I will say that Huberty had served time in World War II as a sergeant for the United States Army. He never fought in Vietnam, and majority of the people who were inside of the McDonald's were Hispanic, Caucasian. There were no Vietnamese people that I saw, because most of the names listed are of the people who were actually killed, and I don't think anybody who was there was Vietnamese. So at first I thought this may have been like racially, what am I trying to say? Racially motivated, yeah, racially motivated. But then they decided later that it probably wasn't, and that he's probably just suffering mental health issues or wanted revenge or whatever. But do you want to tell us a little about the actual incident that happened in the McDonald's after he shot the first two people?
Yeah. So he then goes on, he kills a bunch of people.
Tons of people. I mean, people were hiding under the tables. They're running into the basement. They're escaping.
People are starting to escape, and Chad is taken to the local post office that's right down the street from the McDonald's.
Maybe even like almost like next door,
Yes,
like on the same street.
Yeah, they're literally in the same.
Yeah.
Because at this point, people have heard gunshots. People are actually calling the police. It says that the first call was actually made right after 4:00 p.m.
Yeah, so 4 minutes after he walked into the McDonald's, the first call was made. 4 minutes.
Call. Send the police to the wrong McDonald's. So they do a lockdown of that McDonald's. They shut down the area. They make sure everyone's safe. No one's at this McDonald's locking things down.
Yeah, Huberty's just blowing people away.
Yeah. So what happens is people are still coming to McDonald's because now it's dinner time, getting their McDonald's stuff. And everyone that walks into the McDonald's was either critically wounded or died.
I mean, 3 little boys came up on bicycles to get sundaes. That actually like ripped my heart out of my chest when I read this. I feel like crying right now. Because 3 little boys rode their bicycles up to get sundaes from McDonald's, and this man opened fire on these 3 little boys. I mean, they were children. He was killing 11-year-old, 15-year-old, months old children. He had no, like, he was going to kill as many. He said he wanted to kill thousands. There was 45-ish. I'm going to say 45, around 45 people in the McDonald's when he went there. The McDonald's was popping. I mean, it was lit in there. Yeah, and I mean, people brought their kids, their families. I mean, people were there with their families, with their friends.
But McDonald's was also different in the 80s.
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't like now. McDonald's, yeah, no, it was up and coming still. I mean, it was like a popular hangout for people. I mean, people would go and sit there and have coffee like they do at Starbucks. So there was also people who went up to the actual window to order, and they saw that the glass was shattered.
And then she also saw him actually inside shooting and killing people. She like reversed out of there, drove into a fence, it said, and then she hid underneath some bushes.
Well, there was also another couple who went, and the husband was a repairman, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to go check this out and see if I can help them out, render my services to them." And the guy was shooting people outside of the Walmart. He was shooting people inside of the Walmart. I'm Walmart. McDonald's. Sorry, McDonald's, Walmart, Target, Kroger. We've almost been to all those places today. But so anyway, he's like literally people are just outside like chilling, and he's like shooting them. Now, sometimes I think to myself, how could 45 people not do something and stop this guy? But he had so much power behind him with all those weapons. It was like unheard of for people to be walking around with an Uzi and semi-automatic pistols blasting people. This was, at the time, this was the largest mass murder that had ever been committed, which it has been sadly surpassed now. But at the time, yeah, and I think that was just shortly after, like maybe like months later or something.
Yeah.
But at the time, nothing like this had ever happened. And it's sad that now this has become more of like a normal thing that happens. But at the time, nothing like this had ever happened.
So another thing, the fire truck tried to drive by.
Oh my God, yes.
The fire truck.
Yep.
Literally shot a fucking fire truck and actually ended up wounding someone else.
So you had mentioned the post office. So about 4:00, the post office called the police. This was one of the first calls that came in, and they said that there was a child that had been shot at the post office. The dispatchers who sent them to the wrong McDonald's, then it took them several minutes to get them back on the right track. They sent them to the post office. Sorry, I'm choking.
Yeah.
They sent them to the post office, and then that's when they said, "Oh shit, there's bodies laying." Yeah. Then they realized, okay, so there was like several minutes that had passed. The police said that it wouldn't have changed the amount of people who actually had died, which we don't know here nor there if it would have. But I think it was like an 8-minute delay because of
10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes, a 10-minute delay because of that. The actual whole thing, it went on for 77 minutes. Yeah. So, like 5 minutes after that, that's when people started coming through, and the guy was shooting at, like when I said the repairman, he was shooting at the repairman, their 4-month-old daughter. He shot their wife in the face. He shot like both of them and the husband, and they all happened to survive. Luckily, there were some survivors because the police didn't even know. Honestly, they didn't even know how many people were shooting. They thought it had to be more than one perpetrator.
I think at one point they figured out it was only one person, but the reason why they said that their sniper couldn't get a shot was because of all the broken glass. The broken glass was creating reflections. They couldn't get a clear shot on them. So for 77 minutes, this guy just went on a rampage to the point where there were employees hiding in the kitchen. They were in there hiding for almost an hour.
Yeah, so the first guy who appeared, the first cop who appeared on scene, he immediately knew, we are screwed. I have a 38 caliber revolver, like I said. There was nothing that he could do. They had to wait. Then, after that 10-minute delay, they had to wait for SWAT to get there. The SWAT team like surrounded the building, and then like she said, they couldn't actually see into the building and see what was happening. And this guy, he's like rapidly alternating like which guns he's using. The police don't know actually how many people are there looking for. They're thinking, oh my God, they may have hostages. This guy definitely did not. I wouldn't consider them hostages because at no point was he ever going to negotiate anything. This guy was out for hunting humans.
He was letting people leave. Like people that were able to run away.
Trying to keep them in. He was trying to kill as many people as possible.
Yeah. Like he wasn't trying to hold anyone.
So some of the stuff that he did, it was really horrible. He had shot people. They were laying around. People are holding their loved ones. Their loved ones are like hysterical. He's going up to them and shooting them. He's going around to all the bodies. There's people playing dead. They're like laying there trying to be as still as possible, hoping he will think that they've already been critically wounded and died and that he will leave them alone. And he's going around and he's shooting dead bodies just to make sure. He goes into the so at this McDonald's there was a basement. So you would go, there's like the worker area, like where they're making food, then there's like a door, and there's stairs downstairs to the basement. And in there's like refrigerator, closet, things like that in there. And there was several employees who were hiding out in that closet for a really long time. I mean, they're in there, they're hearing people screaming, they're hearing gunshots, they're hearing like the most horrific things possible. And this guy, he goes down there into that kitchen area. He finds the 6 people hiding in the closet, and he said, "Oh, you're trying to hide from me?" Of course they're trying to hide from you, dude. You're freaking murdering people. And he, one of the girls says, "Don't kill me, don't kill me." She says it in Spanish. I don't know if he understood it or not, probably not.
But he apparently said that he did not understand any Spanish whatsoever, which is why the like to Tijuana was just like a fantastic idea. Because let's move to Mexico and
Yeah, great. But he killed her. He shot her. He also killed 2 other people and critically wounded 1. And you'll see probably, I think we have the photos of the other 2 who were uninjured being escorted out. They had crawled. The people who had been shot, they crawled away, like trying to escape still to a utility room. Like there's 5 people, they're shot, they're crawling away. These people are like literally just doing anything possible to survive. And in the meantime, he's still shooting people. I mean, he's still blowing people away. He's killing people's aunts, their babies, their friends. There's people who he threw a bag of French fries at someone.
Sorry, that was not funny. But yeah, no, he literally threw a bag of fries at someone and was like,
and then he gets a shotgun and shoots a child.
Yeah.
In the face.
It was Aurora Pena. She was wounded.
She survived.
Laying beside her dead aunt, her baby cousin, and her 2 friends. Like, she's heard like a lull in the firing, so she was like, okay, this might be my chance. So she opened up her eyes. Said that she heard him swear, which is when he then threw the fries at her, retrieved the shotgun, and then shot her baby cousin again. She actually survived, but it says that she remained any other person that did. Out of the 10 people that survived.
So there were also lots of people who were hospitalized who died.
Some people did make it to the hospital.
Yeah, but some people made it to the hospital. They'd arrive, they'd be brain dead or whatever, and they'd die the next day. The initial reports from the police said that everyone who was injured or killed in the restaurant had been shot in the first initial minutes after he'd enter the restaurant. But that was disputed by survivors. I mean, he had shot and wounded and unwounded people. Like I said, he was going around shooting bodies just to make sure that people were dead for 40 minutes after he arrived there. So, there's been instances that I've also had that what was reported was not exactly what happened. So I'm more apt to believe the survivors.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Like, they were actually there. They actually witnessed it. Like,
and some of the police officers, after the incident, they had PTSD. They had memory loss. And they weren't in there. I mean, I'm sorry, they weren't. There were people who survived who were in the building who saw all this shit happening. After the police finally got a shot, like SWAT team sniped him. And he was laying on the ground. And they watched him for several minutes laying on the ground. Just, making sure that he was hit. And that was the end of it. 77 minutes. And I mean, the McDonald's thought they were gonna renovate the McDonald's and reopen 2 days later, and that people would just think it was like any other old McDonald's. That didn't happen, however. They did end up closing the McDonald's permanently. It did not reopen. This is crazy. This was like nowadays you think of a mass shooting. This was like the worst one that people had ever seen. And McDonald's for some reason thought they were just going to close it down, paint the walls, and we'll be open in a couple days. We don't have any staff because they've all been murdered. But and actually, I just want to, on a side note here, this was back in the days when the Walmart employees dressed like flight attendants. Like they looked like super suave.
McDonald's employees also dress completely different than how they do now.
I know they have like polo shirts, a hat, and, comfortable things that you.
Back in the day when like people actually dressed up like worked at fast food restaurants.
Yeah, but nowadays people know you're like over a hot grill and you got grease flying at you, and you don't need to be dressed like a flight attendant with full face of makeup on or whatever. But there was you read it. I didn't read it. You told me. Tell us about the victim fund that McDonald's had.
Yeah, so here's the craziest part. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what happens to his wife and his daughters after all. They are completely disgraced. I mean,
Obviously,
for obvious reasons. They end up having to go live like a family friend or something under assumed names because they're receiving death. Like their lives are in they finally moved. They moved somewhere else. The kids start school under different names. Like they completely have to change their lives. Now, McDonald's, what they do is they donate $1 million to the victims fund. The very first person they get a payout from this fund was not any of the victims, any of the relatives of the victims. It was the wife of the shooter.
it was freaking Edna.
Yeah.
And you know what Edna did? She sued him. She turns around and sues McDonald's. She sues her husband's place of employment. And we're talking about the same lady whose husband said, I'm going to go out hunting.
Yeah.
Hunting for humans. Oh, society. They had their chance. Guy told her these things, and she said, hey, honey, I'm going to go back to sleep, or whatever the hell she was doing.
Yeah, she was also a victim of it. She was probably thinking, well, if he's not here, he's not hitting me. So, great.
Possibly. That is a good point. That's a good point. Because sometimes you don't care what he's out doing, and you may think, oh, he's out. I have a hair on my face. You may think he's out doing some crazy stuff and cheating on you and shooting targets, and maybe think that was a dark joke that he.
But hey, at least he's not beating me. So,
well,
until
you kill 23 people. Well, it was actually 21 people. He was one of the victims who, I say victims, he was one of the casualties.
Yeah.
So that would make 22, and then there's also an unborn baby. So a total of 23 casualties because of this incident. There were obviously the family, the children. Dear God, his children. I can't imagine the trauma that they have suffered because of it. Of course, they didn't have anything to do with with anything. I mean, they probably had no idea about their dad's mental health even. And I just feel so bad for his kids.
I do. I feel bad for his children.
Yeah. It's really horrific that they had to be associated with that. And I know that's really hard for all children of people who do really horrible things. It's a trauma and also a fear that you have their genetics, and you almost think like, am I messed up? But no, you're not. There's something wrong with him, and who knows what it could have been. He did have polio when he was a child, and he was in war, and blah, 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 blah. Who knows what happened to him that may have possibly did something to his brain or whatever. I'm not making excuses for him, and I'm just more making excuses for his kids because, oh my God, like, you do not have that in you. This is horrific. But
unless we do it,
no.
Just
But
Next year.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so McDonald's they did pay out,
Through their survivors fund, not through the lawsuit.
through the
Lawsuit was
survivors fund.
actually dismissed. She tried claiming that because of his first job, he didn't have sufficient like respiratory gear and stuff. So that led to part of it, including high levels of monosodium glutamate, which was a staple in McDonald's food at the time.
I mean, MSG is yummy.
Which apparently, oh yeah, that is what it said.
Yeah, MSG, good in moderation. We love MSG. I mean, there's all that bullshit about, putting things in your body or whatever, MSG is poison or whatever. But I mean, everything is. I mean, if you drink too much water, it's poison.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, you can get poisoned by water. But
She drinks.
yeah, I'm drinking water too. But yeah, so they did say that it was not racially motivated. They said he just didn't like anybody. The McDonald's was totally demolished in September, just a few months later.
Mm-hmm.
They paid out money to the families.
Shrine there.
There's a shrine there. They did make another McDonald's 2 blocks away. They donated $1 million to the survivors.
How messed up would it be if there was the first McDonald's shape with the email box?
I bet it wasn't.
Childhood.
But then the founder of McDonald's, he passed away, and his wife, his widow, personally contributed money to burial costs. There were so many people that had passed away that the actual mortuaries and the funeral homes were totally overwhelmed. So they had the funerals at the Civic Center.
Yep.
Just because there's so many deaths that they all had to do, that they weren't used to dealing with that many at once, obviously. So, and then also in front of the college that was there was the shrine that you were talking about. That was a memorial for the 21 victims.
Yeah, because I believe this is to Southwestern University.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a college. It's the land owned by the college. Yeah. So, I don't know. After all of this, they formally developed a plan, like the police department did, to have a rapid response team and just things that they could do to prevent something like this happening again. Because, I mean, they didn't have a chance, really. They didn't have a chance to fight against the guy. It was like fighting against a little tiny militia, a one-man militia.
Well, I mean, so a bunch of the family members of the deceased ones actually tried to sue McDonald's too. And everything was dismissed because even a judge said, McDonald's, there's no way that they could have staffed any sort of security that could have protected against anything.
McDonald's.
It's McDonald's. We don't have armed guards. There's nothing that could have been done.
It's not their duty. Their duty is to make sure that your hamburger is cooked thoroughly and that your fries are salted and crispy. Not their prerogative to make sure that you're not going to get massacred. Yeah, and your McFlurry machine and the ice cream is not. You have to make sure that it's not working to mildly inconvenience you. But they're not there to make sure that some crazy madman isn't going to come in and do this. And that's scary about the society that we live in now, because it's so much more common now that it's almost become just commonplace for mass murders, and you can expect to go to the movie theater and get oofed. But that's, I mean, like I said, the police department, they were horrified that there were policemen who had PTSD, they had to go to therapy, they lost sleep, and blah, blah, blah. It was the most horrific thing they'd ever seen. And, they changed things as much as they could possibly do to make changes happen again. Not necessarily that a madman did happen again, but so that we didn't have a 7-minute delay from the beginning of a massacre until the end of it. They did say that Huberty's body, he had no drugs or alcohol in his body. He did this completely sober. he had nothing to blame it on except for just mental illness. I will say that he was, since he was a welder, like you had mentioned at the beginning, he had like fumes, like lead and cadmium fumes, and he had MSG. And maybe the combination of those things induced delusions,
Dude,
but they didn't.
if MSG is going to make us start doing that, like,
Well, they took it to court, and the lawsuit was
oh,
dismissed.
I know. It was just it's clear, like, seriously, if that was the case, literally
Everybody's a murderer.
It's going to start. If your lawsuit's based on your consummation of MSG, like,
Yep.
come on.
So his wife ended up passing away, and then I guess his children just have to continue living with this horrific thing that happened. But I do want to mention that what was his name? Alberto?
Yep,
Albert
Leos.
Okay, yeah. He was the first guy that was shot. Wasn't he? Was he the first guy that was shot?
I don't think it was the first one.
We can go back through our notes, but it doesn't matter. One of the guys who was shot, he did go on to become a police officer later. So it was inspirational to him, so that he could go and stop this from happening further. But we actually that's the end of this horrific San Isidro McDonald's massacre. Autumn actually wanted to do a different story today, and
Sorry, Albert Leos was hiding in the kitchen.
oh, he was one of the guys hiding in the kitchen. Oh, he was one of the guys who shot that was crawling away.
Yep, he
Yeah,
was.
that's who it was. He was one of the guys who was hiding in the basement kitchen. So we wanted to do a different story today, but it's just not long enough. Do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, so, all right, so I grew up in McKinney.
We are literally right now like 10 miles from here.
Went to high school there, moved there when I was like 11, I think. Grew up there. Nice little suburban area. Raised, like, voted one of the best places to raise a family. Great.
Oh,
place.
just recently they put up murals. It's like now like a touristy spot. Have you
Yeah.
seen them?
Yeah.
Oh my god! They have these big like grain silos, and they have people went and took pictures at like I want to say like Mexican Heritage Day or something like that, and somebody went and painted the pictures of people. I'll show you later. Anyway, go ahead. Tell us the story.
I tried to stay out of McKinney. I grew up there. When I grew up there, it was boring.
It's so boring.
It's still boring.
There's some grain silos with a mural on them.
Like, yay! I definitely want to go see it. Dude. So Adam Barney killed his parents, or killed his mother a couple of years back. He was just sentenced to life in prison.
Yeah, did he take a hammer to his mother?
He did.
That is similar to the case we talked about last week. To learn what a claw hammer was. If you don't know what a claw hammer is, please check out our video from last week because we have an image of one for you. So he was a 17-year-old boy.
Yep, 2021, January 3rd, McKinney police officers responded to the home. It's a very nice neighborhood too.
Yeah.
They live.
Actually, he's 17 now. He was
Sorry,
15. He was 15 when this happened.
Basically, it's actually very, very, very similar to the one that we talked about last week.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was so interesting.
On the same couch, she comes up behind her, starts beating her 11 times with a hammer, bludgeoning her with a hammer, then strangles her until she actually dies. Mother, who was asleep in the bedroom, comes out and is like, what the hell's going on? And then the screwdriver.
I don't know what it is about tools, people, but they are not murder weapons, okay?
They are not. Do not kill people.
But I just thought this was so interesting because he didn't throw a party, but it was so similar to what happened last week. And this is local to us. And he was just sentenced to life in prison. And the guy who we covered last week was not tried as an adult.
Yep. This one was.
He was tried as an adult.
Is that even from the age of 7 years old, psychiatrist said, because he had started taking him to a shrink back when he was like 5, 6, 7. The shrinks even then were like, your kid's messed up. Like there's something not right with your child.
Yeah, he had a long history of violence, of manipulation, of just utter chaos and unprovoked aggression. That's what it says in the article.
From the age of 7, psychiatrists already knew he was a psychopath. Like,
And this psychologist testified in court and said
I told y'all years ago.
he was a psychopath.
Mhm.
And look what happened. I mean, it's like, what's that movie, Born Identity, where you can't, like, where he tries to arrest people before crime stuff happens?
No, that's
Oh, terrible as movies and actors. So, isn't it?
It's not.
What movie is it? Comments. What movie is that movie where? You're gonna Google it?
Yes, I remember the name of the movie, and I should know this.
Oh my god. Okay, so in the movie, they have a prediction machine that predicts if a person is going to commit a crime. And then maybe, you know what?
I can't remember. I can't remember the name of this movie, but it drove me nuts. I'm gonna go back.
Oh my gosh. Google knew what you meant. Came up with Silence of the Lambs. That's not it, Google.
Oh my god, what's the name of the movie, y'all?
So anyway, in the movie, there's like an AI that determines if someone's going to commit a crime, and then they go arrest the person before they commit the crime.
This is driving me nuts.
And
I'm watching it. What? Boy! I'm a big fan.
you're a producer. Call up this Minority Report. We're over here about the Liberal Crime. Oh my god, Thompson. Yes.
I'm watching it in my head, I'm like, why can I not think of that? You got the people in the bathtub, and they're like,
Yeah, so if Minority Report was real, this kid would have been arrested when he was 7. That's what I was trying to say. So yeah, it's just crazy that something like that occurred again. I think it's bizarre.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was sentenced to life in prison. His name was Adam Barton, by the way, if you want to go check it out yourself. He's smiling. He'd been walking for 7 hours outside. And they found him. And yeah, he was sentenced to life in prison, so he's gonna be here in a Texas prison for the rest of his life. Sorry, beginning at 17 years old. Pretty sad. He ended his mom's life, he ended his own life essentially. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about that case because it almost mirrored the case that happened last week. A troubled child, and he killed his mom with a hammer. So I have lots of hammers in my garage, and nobody ever uses them.
I can never find
Come on, you can take one.
no. You know what's sad? All right, so I have a shoe fetish. Yeah, okay, it's not a fetish. That's really bad wording. It's an addiction to shoes. So I have several pairs of like wedge heels, and I can never find a hammer when I need one. So I tend to use the heel of my wedges.
Oh my god! You know what? Actually, I have a hammer. We should bring in here to be in here because it has a bottle opener on the back of it instead of a claw. Because we have these damn hammer stories. So, but here we go. Here's Pepper now. Oh, that's her tail. So anyway, that's all we've got for you today. I just wanted to also tell everyone I wanted to almost do Pepper your tail. I wanted to do a story on Vanessa Julian, but honestly, I'm just sensitive to that case because it's so. I don't know. There's so many details that I don't want to leave out. But I do encourage everyone who's watching us. In just 5 days, Netflix is going to air a special on the Vanessa Julian. And I want you to watch it with me. And next week, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's watch it. Next week, we'll talk about the Vanessa Julian case. But I definitely want to recommend for y'all to watch the Netflix special so you're on the same page as we are. And we'll just briefly touch over it, and we'll talk about another case, too. So, but we love you all so much.
Love you guys.
Oh, my God.
Bye.
Minority Report. He's probably on it. Minority Report.
Definitely. This is the same guy.
Now you have to watch the Vanessa Julian thing soon.